Welcome to the NIneSixFourTwo podcast. This is your host, Mr. NumberNine.
And this is the Fool.
This is where me and the Fool give our
Unqualified and unrequested.
ramblings on the various issues in the world of sport.
Or something like that.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our end-of-year review at the beginning of 2025.
Yeah.
We gave it enough time in case something were to happen.
Yeah, well, you never know. Those last minute, sporting miracles might have happened. And we would have looked silly if we recorded early.
Yes. Absolutely. So, this has been a really another eventful year in sport. We're gonna go into it. Though, for the first time in probably a long time, a relatively normal year. Just had an Olympics, a Euros, a bunch of continental football, and then then you had but it's not like the last 4 years where we've had something like COVID or like a late Olympics, a summer World Cup, a winter World Cup, sort of thing, which all obviously played which has been doing weird things with our sports seasons and I think it's sort of normalized now, but it's forever changed as well. Like it's a new normal as opposed to it felt like the last 4 years is like this interregnum period.
It sort of felt like there was always something going on, right? Some amazing thing or some special thing that was like, oh, this has made everything changed and everything special, or need to make note because this thing's happened. That's unusual. But you say, this year's felt a bit more quote unquote normal. Like, it's all been interesting, there's been lots of fun things happening, but nothing's been so out of place that it made everything else seem ordinary. Like, everything was good.
Yeah, I think we can mostly talk about sports stuff in our highlights as opposed to other stuff. Now, we'll start off with the said Olympics, which was... Usually it's like the highlight of the sporting year that it's on, but this year was a bit different. Yes, it's Olympics in Paris. As I mentioned in our Olympic podcast, this is like as you do whenever there's an Olympics, with kids in primary school do their school projects on the Olympics. They do little obstacle courses and then do little training projects to be inspired by the athletes. We all love to see it, love to see kids do their Olympics project. But this year's Olympics were so controversial that instead my daughter's Olympics projects were all about the problems during the Olympics and how she and her friends would solve these problems. Some of their solutions were not bad. Things like, how about we have comfy beds that the athletes like? It's like, let them cook.
Let them cook. It's amazing what happens when you actually just think about things.
Yeah, and obviously the Olympics had some great meme moments with both the Turkish and the South Korean shooter. A bunch of great photos throughout, and then there's the ray gun, probably the highlight of the Olympics, going to be the most memed thing from the Olympic Games. And then we have then obviously the Team USA won the gold in basketball, and they were pushed all the way until literally the last 2 minutes when Steph Curry decided he would shoot 5 3-pointers in a row.
Steph Curry doing
And
Steph Curry stuff.
Steph Curry doing Steph Curry things. Literally,
Yeah.
the French literally going, "He's the devil," in our lives during the commentary, where he was like literally pulled out the last. And obviously, LeBron James was MVP of the Olympic tournament, which I think was deserved because he played well in every game. But he always plays well for Team USA.
Yeah, exactly.
And he, always puts it seriously because when Team USA lost in Japan, lost in the World Cup, LeBron was just like, "Yep, we're going back. We're bringing the team to the Olympics. We're gonna bring another dream team in." And then bringing our best guys.
Yeah.
No more losing. Because obviously the last Olympics, I forgot, it wasn't that they didn't lose because Kevin Durant was the captain last time, and he obviously led them to a victory. Because Kevin Durant always plays really well for Team USA as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's this thing. Like, you can say many things about a lot of the Olympic basketball stars, but when it comes to internationals, when they bother putting on the Team USA jersey, because they will make themselves unavailable for a lot of tournaments, but like when they play, they're like, "We are awesome." Like, we put on performances. We're not phoning it in.
No, exactly.
When we're wearing the Olympic jersey.
Yeah. Which is always good to see. Like, I understand lots of basketball being played, so sometimes adding extra games to their busy schedules can be hard, but it is nice that when they do they're not phoning it in, they are actually like, no, the jersey still means something, so when we're here, we're going to make it awesome.
Yeah, I mean, the basketball in the Olympics did give me hopes, which I shouldn't have, because two great Suns players, both Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, played awesome in the Olympics, and I was like, we're gonna be awesome. Oh wait, no, we're the Suns. Why did I have hope again?
You forgot who you were.
Yep. But as it is with the controversies, which I think we all have learned to accept as parcel of the Olympics now.
Yeah. It's pretty much how the Olympics goes these days, right?
I think the last Olympics that I was too young to remember any controversies of is Barcelona 92, and I love it. Like, but 96 had controversies because nobody knew what the mascot was, and then there was like the bombing at the concert at Atlanta.
Yeah.
2000 Olympics, we remember it quite fondly, I think. I don't think there's too many but there's probably not too many controversies about Sydney getting the Olympics when they got it.
No.
The Greece had a bunch of issues getting the stadium ready.
Yeah, like days before.
Beijing was already ready by the time Greece was hosting it.
Yeah.
The obviously 2012 in London had its then Rio had its controversies, and then Japan had COVID, and Paris had its issues, and it's also like it looked bad for the Olympics because Paris and Tokyo are like big Western cities. It's not like represent democratic cities.
Yeah.
As opposed to being held at a dictatorship where they throw money, like at the Sochi Games or the Beijing Games, which, they were, or in a third world country like in Brazil, like in the Rio Games.
Yeah.
They were doing it in like two cities that had hosted the Olympics already, had most of the venues, and they still went super over budget and cost so much. Like France probably didn't need, France didn't even need to build like an athletic stadium, which is usually like the most, the bit from the games that you need to find a use for, or it becomes a white elephant, like the Bird's Nest Stadium in Beijing. Like, stunning looking stadium that it is, but it's basically like, nothing, it's not used for anything.
Yeah, well that's part and parcel of the Olympic Games, right? You build a big stadium to host everything and then never use it ever again.
Yeah, but it's crazy because it's in Beijing. It's not like Beijing's a small town. Like you would think if a city of 20 million people could use a stadium, like a grand stadium like the Bird's Nest. And yeah, it just shows how hard it is to find the infrastructure, which is why it's got its controversies. But yeah, we'll get back into it because we're going to go and discuss hosting and stuff in Olympics and other tournaments later on.
Yeah.
Next up, we go to the football continental winners. There was the Euros this year, AFCON, the Asia, and CONCACAF had its Nations League, which was won by the USA.
Mm-hmm.
The Euros obviously won by Spain, who also won the Olympics.
Yeah.
So congrats to them. Also, their women's team are world champions. So right now, Spanish football doing great stuff, both in club level and international level.
Yep, exactly.
Fair to say. Then we had the AFCON won by Ivory Coast.
Yeah.
And the Asia Cup won by Qatar.
Yeah. And Argentina.
And Argentina winning winning the Copa America. So
repeating the early 90s.
Yep.
Which is the last time. 93 was the last time they'd won it before they won it in 2021. Which was also they'd won it twice in a row.
Basically, Messi, the drought has ended now. It's pouring with trophies in his career. In the international part, that is.
Yeah.
His international drought is officially over.
Yeah, exactly. I think so.
But the football calendar, as we mentioned, is getting ridiculously crowded with these continental championships taking part this year, along with the Euros. Unfortunately, with player of the tournament of the Euros, Rodri, and Ballon d'Or winner.
Yeah.
He would go on to get injured later in the season. He pretty much predicted it was going to happen. He was talking about his usage and how absolutely burnt out and broken he was.
Yeah.
And he got an injury. He's not back till the end of the season. Obviously, we hope he recovers well because he's a gun player. But he played almost every game for City. They went all the way to the FA Cup final, League Cup final. They went to the quarters of the Champions League.
Yeah.
And he went all the way to the final for Spain.
Yeah, exactly.
So he played a ridiculous amount of games.
Yeah, and City won the EPL as well, and he'd played all the way through that. I'm not surprised he felt burnt out, really. I think we've talked about in the past about different ways that people, the EPL or UEFA or someone could start limiting game time or something so that, players have some rest. Especially,
I think
it's Rodri.
I think it's the head-to-heads that are the real issue, right? Because if you're playing every week, if you are playing 38 league games a season, if you're doing a head-to-head every once a month, I think that's all right. But if you're doing a head-to-head twice a month, like a back-to-back twice a month, where you're playing 2 games a week, twice a month, that'll wear you out.
Yeah, I think we've talked in the past about it being like a game and a half a week, max play time or something. I can't remember. We had like an hourly a week, so that would be if you played a game, that's fine. Play your game, you get your weekend training, that's fine. It's the back-to-backs, 2 games a week, where things need to get managed a bit better.
We can make some rules around, you don't count injury time, and you count the moment they come in. So if they're entering at the 45th minute, you count, and they are taken off, and they play till the end of the game, it counts as 45 minutes, not however long, unless obviously there's extra time. We don't count injury time because technically that's making up for time that we've missed out. So
where they've been stopped or something's happened to you.
Yeah. So not counting injury time, you do something, but it's got to be based around the minutes played. Like I think, because I was pretty generous, I was basically like going, yeah, if you've played 150 minutes, that would roughly give you you could be able to play you could play
It's basically a full match plus
basic,
another 60-ish minutes, 60, 70
yeah,
minutes, which is a standard sort of sub time for most coaches. Like after about 60 minutes, that's when you're looking for your first subs.
So what I was going to be is that if you go over your weekly limit and you're in the middle of a game, that you don't have to be forced subbed off, but you are basically not able to play the next week. At all. You have an enforced 7-day rest period.
Yeah.
Whereas if you stay under that 150, you are allowed to keep picking him in the next game.
And can actually be starting. I think we even had it such that if you go over that, you could start on the bench. I can't remember when we were talking about it the other. Yeah. Like it was potential you could start on the bench depending on how many minutes you'd actually played. Things like that. So it was trying to be not too restrictive on it, but being mindful of game minutes that players are playing and the impact that does have on their body, basically. I think it's coming into focus, you say, with Rodri this year. Like, he's an amazing player, he was doing amazing things, and as you say, he picked it himself. Like, it's too much football, and then strangely enough, he got injured, so because of too much football.
You can even see it, like Rodri's at least an older player, but you'll even look at younger players. Like, look at Jude Bellingham. Like, he looks like he's got the legs of a 40-year-old.
Yeah.
Just, like, from the sheer amount of wear and tear.
Yeah, exactly.
That he's put into it. Like, and he hasn't even played that many games compared to someone like Rodri. But he's already played so much at his young age. Like, Jude's not even 23 yet, right?
Yeah. Still a reasonable amount of football he's been playing.
Yeah.
Like, what was it?
And we had similar issues at Barcelona that Rodri had with players like Gavi and Pedri. And like we basically were saying, like Pedri's playing too many games. He's way too young to be playing this many games. And, so it's, this was ongoing and coming. But we'll get to Rodri when we talk about Manchester City, which we're going to soon. Now, the most interesting team of the year, I think, this is our third thing, are the two New Zealand cricket teams.
Woo! Yeah.
New Zealand beating the sad South African D team that came to visit, who basically sent the D team because it was more important to play their inaugural Premier League, a T20 tournament.
Yeah.
New Zealand won their first series against South Africa ever. Then they would go on to lose to Sri Lanka.
Lost to Australia as well.
Lost to Australia as well.
At home, 2-0. 2-0?
At home, 2-0.
2-0.
And then they lost to the Sri Lankans, and then they were on their way to India. Obviously, nobody gave them a chance at all.
No.
And by the way, this is not just like at the beginning of the series. After they won the first game, nobody gave them a chance.
No.
After they won the second game, nobody gave them a chance in the third game either.
No, exactly.
Because it was all like extenuating in the first game, it was a sporting pitch. India gave a pitch that was probably more suited to New Zealand's bowling lineup.
Yeah, definitely.
Compared to, which is why Matt Henry and not Kyle Jamieson, the new kid,
William
O'Rourke and Tim Southee bowled as well as they did in that first game. They got India all out for 145.
Yeah.
And then it almost looked like India were going to win again, and then they got the wickets in the third innings at the key times.
Yeah.
To get like a score of like 160 odd to chase, which in New Zealand in the end did very quickly.
The target was
watched that
107 in that first test. Yeah.
The first is 107.
Yeah.
But if that had gone to like 180, 190, that could have been an interesting test.
Yeah,
in the end, it was a very straightforward. So in the end, people were kind of right to go, oh yeah, New Zealand got, they lost a toss that was a good loss because they were going to bat first too, like India did, and India got all out for 145 in those conditions.
What? No, first test was 46, their lowest at home.
Oh, that's right, 46. Yeah.
That was the big thing, right? It was like they just got absolutely smashed in the first innings, and they
and then in the New Zealand scored, like Rachin Ravindra got runs, as did
400 odd in the second, and New Zealand.
Will Young got runs, and then in the second game we had an incredible performance from Mitchell Sapner, and he bowled. Like the variations he got, he changed his angles where he was approaching and where he was getting, and it was causing trouble. And he's a tall bowler, using his height and using his angles, and he was getting those wickets. And then he got an injury in the last day, which while he still bowled really well to lead New Zealand to the victory, that meant he couldn't play in the third game. No. But fear not, because the third game was in Mumbai, and you know who always gets wickets in Mumbai.
Yeah.
Ajaz Patel putting in another incredible performance.
Yeah.
In Mumbai.
It's like, no, this is my pitch. He's staked it. It's his territory now.
Yeah,
and I know he comes from there, so.
Yeah, hometown hero. He got a great ovation from the crowd as well, because he's one of their own when he won the man of the match. And then, I love that the player of the series was Will Young.
Yeah.
Man who didn't score a single century in the whole tournament, in the whole series, but he consistently gave runs. And I think it's good that Will Young's getting his flowers. He's been a great performer for New Zealand for a while.
Yeah, exactly. It was a little bit unfortunate when we came back here and played England that he didn't get the chances here to bat as much, because we really do need to find a spot for him. I know he's sort of seen as the replacement. He's the other number 3, and Williamson obviously is the first number 3, but you feel Will Young's got to have a place in the side somewhere. Will
Young is opener or number 3, I think. That technique is really good. Glenn Phillips, I think, is also batting too low. I think he could easily bat 6-7, but Glenn Phillips, how useful a player has he just been this year for New Zealand? Just whenever you need him, he just comes out and bowls, and it's dangerous. His off spin is becoming dangerously clean. It's no longer dirty off spin anymore.
Yeah. No, we talked about it before. It's definitely not dirty off spin anymore.
Yeah, and it's crazy to me that he 2-3 years ago he didn't even used to bowl, but because he has ADHD, he was getting too bored in the nets. He has too much energy because he's a keeper, and he just picked up bowling, and now they use it in matches.
Yeah, exactly. It's just crazy.
Yeah, and he had a great all-round series, but the bat, ball, and obviously fielding.
Yeah.
Probably the best fielder in the team at the moment.
Yeah,
Glenn Phillips.
So. Yeah.
Him and Rachin Ravindra, definitely, bringing it on the field.
Yeah, which was the other disappointing thing about the England series when they came back here. The fielding really just wasn't up to scratch for those first 2 tests, especially that first test, dear God. Oh.
Yeah.
Especially when they'd got into a position of, you say people writing them off for India, then they won 3-0, which meant that they were actually in a reasonable chance of making the test final, the World Test.
If New Zealand had won all their games, and South Africa won all their games, they would have both made the final to the World Test Championship.
I thought we'd still be could possibly we'd have to have Sri Lanka beat
As long as there
Australia.
was no sweep in the Australia-India series, which, assuming neither side swept.
No, but Australia still had Sri Lanka, so as long as Australia would have to swept Sri Lanka now to have overtaken us if we had swept England. But there was still the possibility that Australia could overtake us. Only just, but winning the three didn't necessarily guarantee it.
It's a bit weird with the thing. You're right. Mathematically, it doesn't quite work out. But I think in the end, the two best teams did make it. Like South Africa went to Bangladesh and won. Went to England and took a test match off them.
Yeah.
And took a test match in India as well. Beat India at home. Beat Pakistan at home. Beat Sri Lanka at home. So, lost to New Zealand, but they took that on the chin, and so they basically had pretty much a flawless campaign. Like, that's a champion level team.
Yeah. Well,
and to be fair, if they didn't send their D team to New Zealand, good chance they would have won that series, because I think South Africa shown to be a better team than New Zealand, given that compared their results against the same team.
At the very least, they would have won one of the tests, right? They would have at the very least taken it, drawn series 1-1. Potentially 1-1, drawn the other. So, I think definitely if it would have been their full strength squad, we would have struggled a lot more than what we did.
Yeah, and they also drew the series. They drew a series against England, which is tough to do, and they won a series in Bangladesh, which is also pretty tough to do. And while New Zealand were winning against the Indians Test cricket, the women's team. They got a bit on the right side of the draw in the World Cup, but once they made it through to the knockouts, they did it. They beat the West Indies, and then they went and beat South Africa.
Yeah. Exactly. It's amazing. It was... And also because, whilst the New Zealand women's team's not horrendous, they're a decent team. They were not considered... in any way.
I don't think New Zealand women's the White Ferns are not in the top 4 best.
They weren't considered at all. It wasn't. They were maybe make semis at best. That was stretch goal was make the semis. But
make the semis was only probable because of what side of the
that's what I mean. It was stretch goal.
They beat England in their. But on their day, on average they're not better than Australia. On average they're not better than England.
No.
On average they're not better than India. Those are the 3 best women's teams. They're probably, and 4th place is probably easily South African. In women's, and then New Zealand and West Indies fight over 5th place, and usually it's the West Indies, right? Because they're the team that tends to be business end of the tournaments. They are, used to winning.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you've got, teams that New Zealand are usually better than, like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Pakistan. But even those teams give, New Zealand a game now. Back in the day, New Zealand would just expect to beat those teams. Which is good for women's cricket. New Zealand can't just go in expecting to win. But also the reverse. New Zealand, can potentially beat Australia now. Whereas back in the day, it's such a rare thing when Australia was so much better than everyone else.
Yeah.
So, women's cricket's definitely even, and like it was going to be a new champion regardless of who won, and in the end, South Africa choke in ICC knockout games.
Just
I'm
how
sorry,
it goes.
it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what gender the players are.
Yeah. I suppose, in fairness to their women's team, they made it to the final first. So,
Yes,
what up on the men's team?
they beat Australia in the finals. They did the hard thing,
Yeah.
and then they lost to New Zealand. Because New Zealand beat the West Indies, and the West Indies beat India for them. Yeah. So in a way, New Zealand got a bit lucky, but you play the teams that are in front of you,
Exactly.
and you got an Amelia Kerr just doing what we've expected her to do.
Yeah, exactly. She's
fact
just an
that she
amazing
wrote
player,
down-
really.
The fact that she wrote down 14 years ago when she was a primary school kid that she was going to be in a World Cup final with Sophie Devine and Susie Bates.
Yeah.
And win, and she did. That's pretty cool.
That is amazing, really.
And there's 4 girls from Tawa High
Yeah.
in that tournament. So shout out to the 04. Now, moving on from the cricket, we go to the second most interesting team. It is Manchester City, 2024. Yeah. Manchester City on a tear. They were the defending champion of 3 different trophies.
Yeah.
They got knocked out of the Champions League in the quarterfinals because they got drawn with Real Madrid, which I predicted would happen.
Yeah.
They then lost. They beat Manchester United in the League Cup, and then lost to Manchester United in the FA Cup after winning the Premier League.
Yeah.
It was going to be, which is interesting for me to think about, that Manchester City has lost to Manchester United in their last 2 games.
Yeah.
So the Manchester City lose the FA Cup, but they're still favourites to win the Premier League when this league starts.
Yeah.
And they're favourite Champions League and everything else.
Yeah.
And boy, do things go crazy.
Yeah.
First, they're in the worst form we've seen them under the Abu Dhabi ownership.
Yeah.
Pep was taking ages to sign the contract, which he finally did a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
There was a decent chance Pep was going to leave, though he said officially that he can't leave now when the team is in the state they're in, and he wants the opportunity to bring them back, which I think he's earned. He's fair. He's Pep.
Yeah, exactly.
Manchester City are not Barcelona. They're not going to kick him out just because he's had a bad year. They'll be like, yeah, okay, bad years happen.
Yeah, exactly.
We will solve the problems. There are issues. I think we can argue there's a lot of issues. Maybe at this Manchester City team, they're too old. They're playing too many games. They're they're no longer got that deep squad anymore that would come in and play a lot of things. Those are the issues, and they're they're back in the day. Manchester City buys somebody on the transfer market that you didn't know that well would end up being an incredible player.
Yeah.
And some of those they just get them from they got, what's his name? Name starts with K, who they ended up selling to Spurs. They got him from Chelsea. He used to play at left back. And then he went to not Spurs. He went to Arsenal with Gabriel Jesus. Ukrainian player. But either way, it'll kill me that I can't remember his name. But Manchester City, we just keep getting these players, and then they'd be like so much better for City. Like Kevin De Bruyne, he was okay at Chelsea.
Yeah.
You can see why Chelsea cashed out on him, and then like Manchester City, he looks like the best player in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Though the opposite happens. Jack Grealish is literally like looks like one of the most stunning, players in the world, like an actual flair player, like a rare flair player, and he's basically become, one of the pieces in Manchester City's game board.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't necessarily think Pep is the issue here. There's other things that the rest of the club kind of have to look at, like in terms of the players they're getting in and all that. But also, like I said, Pep's earned the right to like learn from his mistakes and take the team. Like City aren't going to be relegated, right? So this is the thing. But not only that is what makes City interesting. Is there's 115 other reasons why City are interesting.
Yes.
But they've decided to add an extra problem to that 115 problems by also suing the Premier League. Which will also get heard. Apparently, they're questioning the right for the Premier League to have things like PSR and profit and sustainability rules. They're basically going, if a ownership group very obviously have the finances to actually sustain and finance a team, having profit and sustainability rules just specifically designed, like we think of PSR as a soft salary cap, but that was never the intention of PSR, right? It's there to make sure teams don't overspend and they're very lenient rules for not overspending, by the way.
Yeah.
Like especially the Premier League rules, because the UEFA rules were something like, you can make a $30 million loss. You can make a $30 million loss to be sustainable. Okay, no other industry works like that. That's football.
Yeah.
So their $30 million loss, the Premier League went, you can have a $100 million loss. Okay, so like it's ridiculously like how lenient the Premier League wanted to be, because they didn't want anyone to break the rules and they didn't want to have to argue with them.
Yeah. Exactly.
And also the Premier League's clubs choose those limits. Okay, it's not like
Yeah, exactly.
It's like the Premier League is answerable to the 20 members, so the 20 members vote on this. So you can't just blame the Premier League; you have to blame the clubs as well, because they vote for it. And Manchester City's basically gone, look, as a business, it would be the same as if you bought a business and you were being told that you can't use your own money to invest in that business. You have to keep making that business as what the business earns. But technically, people do it all the time, right? You take a risk and you buy a failing business and you invest your own money and you hope to turn it around and make it into something that works, right?
Yeah.
And
or even it might not be a
look,
failing business. It could be a business that's just sort of okay. It has some things, but to make it better, you got to invest some. Or you're starting a new business, like you're going to run in a loss for the first few years, probably. Like you're hoping to sort of cover costs, but you're probably going to be sinking some capital in that's not going to get back for a while. So,
yeah. And their whole position is that if the source of the funding is from somewhere where it's clearly not going to be an issue, like the Abu Dhabi Sovereign Wealth Fund is unlikely to go bankrupt anytime soon.
Yeah.
Just like what I think. I don't pretend to be an economics expert. I'm just saying that I don't think that's going to happen. So we're not going to see Manchester City go into receivership or declare bankruptcy, right? Like that's not very likely.
No, I wouldn't think that's likely at all. Yeah.
And like their argument is, if that is the case, why are we not allowed to invest whatever the heck we feel like? it's our money. At the end of the day, like, it's, to be fair, it's the money of the people of the United Arab Emirates, but that's a different point altogether. But yeah, I understand. But it's clearly like, and it's an interesting lawsuit. I don't think they've got a chance, but it'll be and it's all gonna hit the thing with the new ombudsman who've come in. But we'll get into it. But yeah, Manchester City, they're always a team to watch. They're always interesting.
I mean, in the lawsuit side of things, they did have a partial question mark win earlier in the year, back in October, where they took the Premier League to court over some of their ways they were ruling around the fair market value and what was it, the associated party transactions, so when clubs loan themselves money, because originally the Premier League was looking at those slightly differently. Like the fair market value, they want the clubs to show how much the fair market value is, and he's like, that's unfair. Like, why? That makes no sense. Like, we can just say whatever it is. Like, you're putting too much emphasis on us to be like, what's the fair market value? We just paid this much. That must be the fair market value. And wanted and then the APT stuff was very much against it. They're like, we don't have that, and yet you're allowing clubs, Chelsea was one, have massive loans from their own owners, and that's just that can be written off. But yeah, they had those partial wins during the year, but those lawsuits were actually designed to try and get rid of those two rules entirely, and that failed. So that's not helping their overall battle.
Yes. There are a bunch of different issues, and I listen to Tifo and The Athletic. They've got a bunch of great podcasts.
Yeah.
Very, very well summarized, explaining how it works with City, what are the various things in their lawsuits, and what are being won, and the different court cases. So yeah, we're gonna. There's more to come in this.
No,
for
there's
sure.
definitely more to come.
And whatever it results, whether City ends up being like going away scot-free or getting charged or getting, worst case scenario, relegated from the expelled from the Premier League, etc., then it's gonna have some sort of impact, like incredible impact on how the game won.
I did see a prediction that they would get 100-point deduction, which I thought was crazy. But I think that's worked off the theory of how much similar point deductions, similar transactions, like adding it up, somebody got to 100 points deduction.
I mean, 20 points deduction is what you get for going into receivership. And Everton were being pinged something like 20 points for being over PSR by an amount, but they never entered receivership. And they got to argue, like, look, we've overspent, but we're not in receivership, so we haven't, like, harmed ourselves, which is the point of these laws.
Yeah.
So, giving us the same punishment as a club that declares receivership, because that's harmful. Like, it hurts the community. You're not paying debts back to local businesses. You're not paying back your staff. Like, that's understandable why you should be punished for getting into receivership. Like, there has to be something that, the Premier League has a duty of care there, and the EFL do as well.
Yeah.
So definitely understand the logic versus, like, Everton broke the rules, but they're paying back their way. They're receivers and everything.
Yeah.
So they're not doing any further harm to the community after that. It'll be so it's gonna be interesting to see how it works out, and they're also changing the rules around the finances as well to make it more. Well, the interesting thing is apparently the rule that the group of people like Steve Parrish, from the owner of Crystal Palace, wants to introduce with his. He's got an alliance of clubs. Is that the team will only be their transfer budget and player fees. So if you only count those two things, can only add up to a total of something like 5 or 6 times the amount of television revenue won by the lowest placed team in the league.
Now that is interesting.
So that's a salary cap, which, by the way, the PFA has said we are going to absolutely oppose this, which that's their job.
Yeah.
So, like no surprises there. And I would too if I was a player association, like you're trying to limit our wages. What the fuck?
Yeah, exactly.
Unless it's figured like no team is above 5 at the moment. But, unless they make it something ridiculous like 10 times, 20 times, But even then, like, I just feel like the Premier League has shown that you put a limit and you think, like, this is a ridiculously high limit. Nobody will ever get there, and the Premier League gets there.
Yeah, exactly.
And, like, that's been the problem, right? Like, they tried to make it as lenient as possible because, you make so much money if you're a Premier League club, especially if you're consistently in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Earning that. And also, like, realistically, like, I think City made the argument of, like, new investment is how you get the clubs, bring in, like, disruption into the league. And that's what grows economic value and fan interest. It's also, like, it's arguably economically bad to not allow a team, like, something like RB Leipzig or Manchester City, Chelsea, Blackburn back in the day.
Yeah.
Coming in to disrupt the league.
Yeah, exactly.
And one of the reasons, like, Premier League has the number of eyeballs is there are so many competitive teams.
Yeah.
So we'll see how those play out. Next up, another great New Zealand story.
Yeah.
Dame Lydia Ko.
Woo!
Winning at the Olympics and then winning the British Open. Entering the Hall of Fame, becoming the youngest Hall of Famer.
Youngest Dame. She's just amazing, really.
Absolutely amazing. It's like a great reward for a wonderful career. Like, she's always performed for New Zealand in the Olympics. She got silver, she got bronze, she finally got gold.
Yeah.
After working so hard.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I know
Sorry, go ahead.
I know we talked about it in the Olympics podcast as well, but it was still warms my heart seeing how much it meant to her as well. Like,
absolutely, yes. Yeah. It clearly meant a lot to her, and like when she sunk the putt on the 18th hole, that was like incredible.
Yeah,
absolutely, like the highlight of the Olympics for me. But also like the year, like first time in a long time, we could celebrate like a solo athlete getting the top of the world in her chosen sport.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we talk about this about her wonderful career and all, but I mean, she is only 27. So.
Yes.
She's, that's the other thing I really like about Dame Lydia is that she's had all this pressure on her from a very young age. Like, and over the last few years, people might have been saying, she doesn't have it anymore and stuff. It's like, I think 20s. Like, she's starting her career just because she was really good in her teens and came out of the blocks like really amazing. She still had a lot of learning to go. Like, she's going to have a renaissance. Really.
Got another 20 years of career to go.
Exactly.
And maybe even more. So, like, I'm not ready for her to retire. Happy to see more decades of Lydia Ko.
Exactly.
At the absolutely killing it on the course.
Yeah.
Now, similar to the world of golf, the world of tennis has like last year, we had a new star was born with Carlos Alcaraz winning 3 Grand Slams, looking like a favorite to try and do the Grand Slam this year. Lost again in Australia, so he's still missing the Australian Open for his career Grand Slam.
Yeah.
So he's got three. He's got the Surface Slam because he's won the French Open, the Wimbledon, and the U.S. Open. So he's got one on a hard court, grass court, and clay court.
Oh yes, yes.
He lost in the Olympics to Djokovic because one of the other things potentially he could have done is if at that point, because he'd won French Open, Wimbledon, if he had won the Olympics, won the US Open, and then won the Australian Open the year, like, he would have like all 4 slams, plus he would have the Olympic title as well.
Yeah, at one time.
Would be, like, the first player to do that since Steffi Graf in 1988, who did it in a calendar year. So yeah, she's won the Golden Slam.
Yeah.
Which I never thought I'd see anyone potentially, like the fact that there was even somebody who could have potentially done it, like Carlos, was exciting as a tennis fan.
Yeah.
And he's a fun guy to watch. And then we've almost seen like his platonic opposite, Yannick Sinner, having a fantastic year. The rivalry is real. They've faced each other in the finals twice in the Grand Slam last year.
Mm-hmm.
And the from there you can see that the two of them have enjoyed this rivalry. It seems to be like a Nadal Federer style rivalry.
Yeah, exactly. Which is good.
And it's crazy because of the 4, in the if you look at the 4 tournaments, 4 Grand Slams this year, Djokovic only made the final once at Wimbledon.
Yeah.
Trying to win it one more time, but he lost to Carlos again.
Yeah.
Though he did win the Olympics, so he still has a bit of fight. The old dog still has a bit of fight left in him. So you would not write him off next year.
No, I don't think you'd ever write him off, really. But definitely a change in the air, right?
Yeah, that's the change. Nadal has retired. Djokovic is not regularly making every single final anymore.
Yeah.
So it's a new era for tennis. We're gonna see the next generation. That's very, really exciting. Basically, Italy versus Spain. It's gonna. I'm sure eventually you'll see a young American pop up as well. But yeah, at the moment, these are the two guys, and we'll see how they progress. But
yeah,
like tennis is showing that there's a lot more to come. Especially in the men's side, in the coming decades, for us to watch. Next up, America's Cup is once again New Zealand's Cup.
Yeah, once again.
So, America's Cup won by New Zealand. In Marseille, obviously, the tournament was technically New Zealand have the right to host, and they decided to take it out of the outside of New Zealand, and it would be hosted in. It would be hosted in Marseille,
Barcelona, for America's Cup.
Sorry, Barcelona, yeah. Be hosted in Barcelona, and from there, that's where the last 2, I believe.
No, this
have been.
The one before was I think was still in New Zealand. Yeah, so the one before was in New Zealand, and then this is the first one outside of New Zealand. They haven't said where the next one will be, because I don't think there's a Challenger of Deed yet, which is a little bit unusual, because normally they have someone signed up straight away. Oh no, sorry, I tell a lie. No, NEOS Team UK is the Challenger record. Yeah.
Yeah, Ilios made it to the finals and lost. Once again, similar to how they do in the cycling, make it to the finals and lose to the good team, and they seem to, at least they do make it to get second place in other sports, and their football teams don't generally do that well. This is the second defense by Team New Zealand in our current run. Obviously, they won in 2017 in Bermuda against Oracle.
Yeah.
And
then, defended 2021 the monohull AC-75s.
Yeah.
Against Luna Rossa.
That's right. And the I remember we're back in the good old days when they lost to Lunar. They beat Luna Rossa, and then obviously they lost to Alingi. They will beat Luna Rossa, and then they lost to Alingi back in 2003, and then Alingi defended their tournament in Valencia.
Yeah.
And then Alingi lost to Oracle. And bringing the cup back to the United States, to San Francisco, who would
have that amazing comeback by Oracle.
Amazing comeback by Oracle, but then they would get smashed in 2017.
Yeah, in Bermuda. Yeah, they couldn't do the miracle a second time.
Yeah. So, first time in ages that a British conglomerate has made the final.
Yeah.
I
think it's the first time since the 70s at least. So it's the first time since basically this format of racing has come up, because before Australia won it back in 82.
83.
83. Yeah, in 83 they won it. That one and all lots before was just single boat races, and then it wasn't until 87 when Australia hosted in Fremantle that they started doing the series and the Louis Vuitton and all the rest. So before that was just that, and so the Brits must have been like 75, 76ish since last time they would have challenged, or would have been in the actual America's Cup, because Australia lost it then won it. So they lost with Australia then won with Australia too.
I think the last time that a yacht club from Britain was in the finals of the America's Cup is in 1964. Because all the way through after that, it was always an Australian yacht club, like Royal Sydney, or Royal Perth, or the Sun City Club.
Alright, yeah. I was trying to remember how many challenges an Australian yacht club had. But it was, 4.
Yeah. And Alan Bond would go on to fund Australia's eventual win. He kept funding Australia until 1983, and then obviously the wing keel, like maybe one of the greatest moments in sports.
And
probably Australia's greatest ever sporting victory.
Yeah, and just the way it went about as well, with all the secrecy around it and not wanting to show anyone and all this, and it just really hyped it up so much that it's an amazing sport moment, really, just the whole thing around it.
Yeah. Yeah, and so the America's Cup, it's back to New Zealand. We'll see if they can keep it for a third. It'll be the first time that anyone other than the New York Yacht Club has done 3 defenses. And we don't really count the New York Yacht Club, right? Doesn't count.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of does, but sort of doesn't, right? It does because it's the one that made it into the thing that it is.
Yeah.
But, yeah. that's sort of why not, because they had it for so long, just sort of doing their thing. And whilst it made the history of this, yeah, it's sort of interesting
Yeah.
because it's like that's the reason why the America's Cup is so anything. It's just because they held it for so long. But it's sort
Yeah.
of since they lost it, it's at least my view is that it's become a bigger thing. It's become more of an event.
I think Australia winning the America's Cup in 1983 made it a thing that people followed. Like right at the time when it could be on TV and it would be on satellite,
Yeah.
and people would watch it, and like, yeah, it became this thing. And obviously New Zealand making it their first defense in 1988 with the Mercury Bay Boating Club from Coromandel back. But they would lose that, and then they would get their revenge in 95.
Yeah.
Now, okay, from the America's Cup, we go to another super interesting team, the Kansas City Chiefs. They didn't play that well all through most of last season. They pushed on in the playoffs, and once obviously Taylor Swift showing up to all their games gave them a lot of attention. They would then go on to win the Super Bowl, do the two first players since Tom Brady in 2017 to win back-to-back Super Bowls.
Yeah.
And their first time, they're going for the three-peat. Kansas City Chiefs ended the calendar year with getting the 1 seed, guaranteeing they don't face anyone in that first round.
Yeah.
And as we mentioned in our NFL podcast a few days ago, they didn't have to worry about playing any of those AFC wildcard teams because the wildcard teams ended up being the Steelers, the Denver Broncos, and the Chargers.
Yeah.
So they have 2 teams from their own division who challenged them. Like, they lost their final game to the Broncos with obviously none of their starters playing.
Yeah.
They've got a red-hot Ravens and Bills team who are seeded to play, and the Texans are there as well. You know, so they're going to do stuff, maybe. We'll see. And the thing is, this is a historic thing. If the Chiefs make the three-peat, it's been 60-plus years of Super Bowls, and nobody's ever done 3 in a row.
Yeah.
When you think about it, that's pretty incredible. Like, how many leagues do we know of multiple sports where there's at least one team that's done 3?
Yeah, well, exactly.
And I guess it shows that the way they designed with salary caps and the draft system, that it's very difficult to dominate for as long. Unless, of course, you draft the GOAT.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know if Kansas City will win the Super Bowl because anything can happen, you know. But,
From my point of view,
the
no, because the Bills are going to stop them in the conference final. So.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, most likely they'll still host a championship game. Like, they'll probably win the division round, whoever they play.
Yeah.
It won't be the Bills if the Bills win, because the Bills are still the 2 seed.
Yeah.
So could be the Ravens, could be the Texans, could be the Chargers.
Yeah.
It could be the Steelers. Very, very interesting season for them. The Bills, a bit of a banana peel. They're going to have to play. I think they're probably relieved that that Denver won, because if they had lost, the Bills would have had to play the Bengals, and we all know the Bengals would have beaten the Bills. This is how it works. Joe Burrow would just show up and be like, "Oh yeah, do you remember me?" Like, because there's like I've seen like Joe Burrow seems to have the Bills' number. Like that's just how it is. Like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are like even Stevens, right? Like in the regular season, obviously Patrick Mahomes beats them all in playoffs, but regular season it's more 50-50.
Yeah.
But like Joe Burrow is the guy who beats all of them except Lamar, because he hasn't played Lamar in the playoffs, but he's beaten Josh Allen several times in the playoffs, and he's the only guy to have beaten Patrick Mahomes. And also the second time he played Patrick Mahomes, they should have beaten him. He got bad calls, like really bad calls. He should have beaten Patrick Mahomes the second. He should have made back-to-back Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Really. So you don't want to face Joe Burrow ever.
No.
Facing Bo Nix and the Broncos, okay, you can't write them off. They've made the playoffs, but you're happy it's not them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, overall, the team is like, this would change everything about the NFL if they do manage to get the three-peat. Like the form, like this is like it's a format where I think Patrick Mahomes is taking less and less money per year and just extending out his contract, because he already had like a $500 million 10-year contract.
Yeah.
Which is looking like a bargain for the Chiefs, by the way. Now. Like, and he's pushing it out even further, like, but his guaranteed money is getting higher and higher. Like, it'll probably, like, Patrick Mahomes will probably be the first player to earn $1 billion in salary in the NFL.
Yeah.
Like, LeBron James is already the first athlete to have gotten $1 billion from salary throughout his career. But, it took him 20 plus years to do that.
Yeah.
And basketball players earn more than football players generally.
Yeah.
Unless you're a QB you're a top level QB. Like your good basketball players are earning $38 million a year. Your Steve Adams level basketball players, like obviously really good player, but he's not one of the top players of the league. He's like a starter. Earns 20 plus million, right?
Yeah.
Just like that. And like the salary cap is more lenient in the NBA, and like there's less players. You're not paying 50 players. You're paying 12 players in your squad.
Yeah.
So the more of a pie, piece of the pie you get.
Yeah.
So.
And I think the NBA, the players get a bigger slice of the.
Yeah, they get
TV rights.
54%.
Yeah.
54% or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's they get paid more generally compared to football players. The quarterbacks are the exception, but quarterbacks generally don't get paid that top tier money for like more than 4 or 5 years, because that's when they're at their peak. After that, they'll be like, they'll be taking a team friendly, or they have to make a team friendly so they can hire. And the Kansas City Chiefs already look like they've rebuilt their offense.
Yeah.
With Patrick, and they've got Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. Like they've rebuilt. It's a new look offense. They look crappy all year until the last few weeks of the year, and you just go, "Yep, this happens every year."
It's every year. It really does.
It happens. And once again, we'll see if they can do it. If they do a three-peat, who's to say they can't do 4?
Exactly.
It'll be genuinely unprecedented territory. I don't think there's been a team that's won more than 3 in a row in North American sports. I'm trying to think who was the last team to do that. Like, I think the Lakers did 3 in a row with the Shaq and Kobe team. That's the last team from the NBA to do it. I think the New York Islanders won 4 in a row in the 80s, and that's the last time an NHL team has won has won 3 or more. Because I think if you're saying more than 3 in a row, basketball had those, Boston Celtic teams of the 80s that won, of the 60s that won like 10 in a row,
Yeah.
There's like, baseball has had years when, teams have won 5 in a row and stuff like that. But like football just never had that. And it's not been like that in a long time. Like no teams, the fact that the last time somebody won 3 in a row was 20 years plus across 4 sports shows you how difficult it is to do.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's being done in like the most difficult one to do it in, which is the NFL, makes it even more remarkable. Moving on from the Kansas City Chiefs, we go to something that's off the pitch. We finally got the football ombudsman.
Yeah.
All the court cases have played out. Everton, Nottingham Forest. I think we both kind of agreed that they worked out well for both teams in the end. Like Everton, when they got those point deductions, played amazing and didn't get relegated.
Yeah.
And now this season they're not getting point deductions and they're playing crap again. Nottingham Forest, after that point, Nottingham Forest are almost a tale of like, take the risk, pay the fines, take the points deductions after a couple of seasons, because the foundations they built, whether by accident or intention, has now led to them, at one point they were second in the Premier League table this season.
Yeah.
And arguably correctly, like they weren't they weren't second because of like way things looked at. Like no, they've looked like the second best team in the league.
They're currently third, but they're tied on points of Arsenal, who's second. They're only behind on goals, so
like Chris Wood is having an incredible season.
Yeah.
They're all around just to the point where when people were doing their teams of the season, they've picked Chris Wood over Erling Haaland.
Yeah.
At striker.
Yeah. Well, he is scoring goals at the moment, so.
Yeah, which I can't argue with. I think it's definitely correct. So there's question around whether the fines are truly going to stop people from breaking the rules, because Nottingham Forest broke the rules and Nottingham Forest, to be fair, broke the rules in a very much the letter of the law than the spirit of the law, because they knew they were going to sell their player to Spurs and get the 27 odd million, which would have balanced their books out. But the date of the sale was before the date of the book after the date that they had to send that in, and they kind of pre-entered it into their books, like they're expecting that money in. The Premier League's like, look, it has to actually be in your account. There has to be a date we have to put down.
Yeah.
So we have to ping you. And to be fair, but Nottingham Forest argued that they should be treated leniently because they openly admitted to it, and they were also saying we weren't breaking the rules as much as we were really bending the rules, which I kind of agree with. They didn't really get a big advantage from their loss, right? And they were gonna be okay in the end. Once again, since they were never in danger of being unsustainable.
No, exactly. It's
you could argue Everton came close. Yeah. Everton, you could argue, came close to being unsustainable and punishment, but they didn't cross the line of going into receivership.
Yeah.
And so the ombudsman has a lot to look at, and then Leicester City, where they got away with it because of their dates they had to put in for the Premier League versus the EFL, meant they could use a loophole. They had broken the rules, but they could play around with the books to show that they had it. And the EFL went, look, we've been talking to you guys for ages about unifying our rules and dates so people can't do this.
Yeah.
And you guys didn't listen to us, and now it's an issue. And this is what's happening. It looks embarrassing for you.
Exactly.
But this is the thing. The Premier League doesn't want to ping clubs for breaking PSR. They genuinely don't. How do I know this? Because the Premier League are also the clubs.
Exactly.
You know, they don't actually want to. They want to, like, they don't want to punish their own members. And the members are the ones who are voting on the punishment. They're not going to make the punishment, like, you know. If my workplace had a thing of, like, bad behavior and you guys decide what the punishment is, we're all just going to be like, the punishment is you have to eat, like, bag of hot Cheetos. That's your punishment. We're not going to be like, you lose your job as a punishment. Nobody's going to pick, up to employees, we're not going to pick that as an option for how management can punish us.
Yeah. Maybe get sent home early, but you come back in tomorrow and there was no pay deduction. You're fine. Just go home early.
Yeah, those would be the sort of punishments we would pick if it was up to us to decide how employees get punished. And the Premier League specifically have it like that. And so there are issues around it. And they are looking to see about changing the rules anyway. So it's very interesting because it looks like there is support for the Crystal Palace model, though not from the PFA. And I kind of look at them and go, it's interesting you're doing this, because I think the PFA will just look at you and go, nope.
Yeah, just no.
This is a salary cap. You can't argue that it's not. And, obviously they're opposed to a salary cap. And look, the players will go on strike happily. The PFA have money.
Yeah. They'll be fine, I'm sure.
Players will happily go on strike to be like, nope, we're not taking this. And the Premier League don't want to lose out on games. Like, there hasn't been strikes for the players.
Yeah.
And there hasn't. They've been able to show to their. Like, one of the things reason why the Premier League is such a big league in terms of money, like, I think after the NFL and IPL, if you look at in terms of number of days played and how much you get paid, like how much it earns per week of play, because the IPL, its total value is not as much as the EPL, but it's a 2-month league.
Yeah.
How much they earn in 2 months versus how much the Premier League earns in, a 9 months.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously, you're getting way more TV coverage in 9 months and more games than you were with IPL, which is like a 2 months. So, is it right? So, but the TV people still pay more, but because especially in India, you can advertise, really aggressively. You can literally have an ad every over. And look, you and I watch cricket. We don't mind ads every over.
No, exactly.
Like, it's not like we're missing out. Like, we're used to the idea that cricket takes time between overs. Like a 30-second ad. Like, yeah, that's fine. Yeah. 20-second ad between overs. Okay. Yeah. You could generate, like, this is why they love one-day cricket and test cricket.
Yeah.
Advertisers.
It's not like anything's happening between overs, right? The players are walking from one end of the field to another. That's it. It's like there's no action. It is literally downtime.
Yeah. But we're also like it's also downtime in the NFL, but it's jarring to watch NFL if you're not used to the stopping for ads all the time.
Yeah.
Same with basketball. If you're not used to it, it feels jarring if you come from rugby or football.
Yeah.
Versus like cricket, this has always been the way. Yeah. So, we could watch cricket or we could watch them point the camera at like seagulls, women in the crowds, the stuff that let them talk. Like, okay, we could do that, or we could watch ads, whatever.
Well, half the time these days when they can't put an ad on, it's just a wide-angle shot of the ground, and the commentators aren't talking anyway. And they come back when they would have if the ad had played. Like, just ridiculous.
Yeah, Like, this is the whole thing. Like, there's the Premier League are gonna. It's a recession-proof league. It's one of the few things in the UK's economy now that's actually still growing and like earning money for the country. It's one of their best products, probably.
Yeah.
Like, in terms exports to the rest of, like, it's probably what gives the UK the most amount of cultural capital that it has right now as the Premier League. Like, the fact that it does both people in America waking up at 4 or 5 in the morning to watch versus also people in New Zealand, Australia waking up 4 or 5 in the morning to watch. Like, that is what the Premier League has done. It's made football like a late night, early morning sport for people to, you know, getting used to watching it. We laugh at people in the UK complaining about 7 p.m. kickoff time. We're like, what's the problem here? You didn't have to wake up in the morning? What?
What? Yeah, what? What's your problem? Like, that's we can just watch it at a normal time? Oh, okay.
Yeah. But anyway, the ombudsman, the way these court cases are playing out with the various clubs, plus how the PL and the EPL are, I think it's obvious that the EFL and the Premier League are gonna have to come to a lot of partnership type agreements.
Yeah.
If they want to kind of get the ombudsman to not, like, the thing is, the EFL are happy to have an ombudsman. They're basically like, you guys, outside body, are making rules, we have to follow them. We're good with that.
Yeah.
Because, you know, at least it makes it, you know, you're spending resources doing it versus we are. And, like, the Premier League obviously hate it.
Yeah. They're like, can't tell us what to do.
Yeah. And to be fair, the clubs in the EFL need more protection from a sustainability perspective. There are more bad owners who have led to clubs being, you know, bankrupt or no longer exist, had to start again from the bottom tier, like as Phoenix clubs.
Yeah.
You know, what almost happened to Bolton, what happened to Bury FC, a bunch of clubs. So with what's happening to Derby at the, you know, and other clubs like that. So we know that you know, it's more precarious down, you know, unless you have like a super rich billionaire owners, or you have a hedge fund, or, you know, ideally a sovereign wealth fund backing you.
Yeah.
You're still at risk of getting relegated. Like, it's still a risk of having lots of financial issues. Like, heck, Leeds, the example, right? And Leeds did get receivership as well. Now, the final thing is that happened towards the last month of the year. Saudi Arabia officially awarded the 2034 World Cup. Now, obviously, they were the only country bidding for it, and they sped up the bidding process rather than look for more bids. I mean, come on, New Zealand were totally going to bid for it. I could
have seen a New Zealand Australian bid if there had been like actual time to formulate the idea and get it around. But that was the other things, like they awarded the 2030 and then almost immediately went like, okay, bid's open. Oh, Saudi Arabia. Oh, only bid. Okay. Sorted. Done. Closed. We'll start deciding now.
There is a lot of, I mean, I'm sure all of the Oceania confederations received a significant donation from a mysterious donor.
Yeah.
You know, several months ago, so Saudi Arabia didn't have to. That's why Saudi Arabia were the only people bidding, right?
Yeah.
And the issue now, the thing is, Saudi Arabia has it. They have a long time to prepare to get the tournament done. The fact that it'll probably be another Winter World Cup like they had in Qatar. Well, the fact that we've been able to do it means it's like proof of concept is already there.
Yeah.
It's a big issue. The thing is, like, a lot of people are wondering, like, should Saudi Arabia just host the World Cup from now on? because they're doing the tournament like it'll be the tournament is likely to be financially pretty sustainable. They're building it in city like Saudi Arabia kind of very much need the economic growth from the World Cup, so putting in the construction projects in there, and they unlike Qatar, Saudi actually has a football culture. They had a football league and everything before it, and they've been trying to qualify for the World Cup, and been playing in the youth tournament. So Saudi Arabia has a football culture.
Definitely.
They are obviously they've got a competitive league now, and they wanted to. So pushing the tournament will have lots of supporters, and it is in the middle of. It's in exactly the right time zone for both America. Like remember the times we were watching the World Cup during the Qatar, which was World Cup, which was pretty suitable for us.
Yes.
They had so there was the timings tend to work out for Europe and Asia, which is like the two biggest, and like Europe is also Africa, so that's the numbers: Africa, Asia, Europe.
Yeah.
And it's not bad for North America, not bad for East Asia.
Yeah.
And not bad for Oceania either. So that is the other side of like hosting it around there. That time zone region tends to work out better as well. And there's a similar issue with the Olympics where we'll see, because the next one is in Los Angeles. I think everybody was disappointed with the issues with the Paris Games, and also the fact that it went so over budget. And it's not just because of COVID. Obviously, COVID contributed to that. But the overall, most of the issues were not just from COVID. It was just building up the new facilities and the new stadiums and things like that.
It is just the way the Olympics are. Like, the Olympics go over budget. I think you're right that the amazing thing we talked about in the Olympics podcast being, the last LA Olympics was the one that went, turned a profit. That's an amazing thing for the Olympics. Olympics don't normally turn a profit. But if LA can do that, and can basically model themselves this time around the same as last time, that's amazing, and maybe something comes of that. So.
Well, the only venues being built for the Olympics are the cricket venue, but that will specifically have a team moving into that stadium for Major League Cricket. So that they would have already had one.
Yeah.
Basically. So that's not going to be a white elephant, and it's a cricket state. LA, there are plenty of people who play cricket, and cricket's a big enough sport that it will get used.
Yeah.
Everything else, you've got the facilities from UCLA and USC. And last time they just stayed in college dorms because they're empty during the summer, which once again, they can do that.
Yeah.
Athletes will happily stay in like a college, college dorm room.
Yeah. It's probably going to be better than the Paris ones. So.
Yeah, and you can probably, there's not, compared to how many students there are in USC and UCLA, that's not, there's not that many athletes.
No,
and other officials. So there's plenty of room. And there'll be teams that will want to take out hotels and stuff, which is fine. And LA is a big enough city that there is room and stuff for that.
Yeah.
As well. Pretty, and other than a few, because they were gonna build a softball stadium, but in the end they decided the softball would just be held in OKC.
Yeah.
In an existing stadium, so it's even more sustainable. I mean. I don't think it's a bad idea to host the tournament in the one place.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's a bad idea.
I think any city you picked, eventually all those facilities are just going to end up being used if you have track and field, volleyball, all that. But I think the beauty of LA is that, the fact that the colleges around LA and Southern California and around California itself are big on the Olympic athletics. They UCLA, USC, and then your San Diego, Stanford, and Berkeley up near San Francisco. They all have like strong-ish like athletics programs, or they play volleyball, they play basketball, they play baseball, like football, soccer. They're all there. Soccer stadiums you don't need to worry about. LA has two popular soccer teams.
Yeah.
And there's also like the big LA stadium which the Rams and Chargers play.
Yeah, exactly.
For the big stadium, like they're all there. Whereas like I can't, if you did it every time in London, I don't know how many people in the UK would be interested in watching volleyball or handball or those badminton.
Yeah, exactly. It's unknown how much you'd have to build facilities for that, and they'd only be there basically, maybe minorly otherwise, but the Olympics, as you say. And
I mean, badminton maybe, because you have All England every year. It's one of the 5 Grand Slams for badminton.
Exactly.
But in LA, people will just watch it, because it's already a city where they like. I think this is like it's the unique thing about LA. London would probably be able to do it, just about. But that's about it. I don't think Paris, New York, Tokyo are in that level.
Yeah.
Because LA, London, just because they just have had, they just host a bunch of these things already.
Yeah. There's a major tournament for most things there.
The London Games didn't come under budget.
No.
Despite all that, like LA is not building anything. Whereas, like, to be fair, you wouldn't have to build anything if you had it in one place.
Yeah. Well, say you build it once, then it is there. So then next time you start working it out. But still, like as we said in the previous podcast, like LA sort of has it already. As what you said, LA sort of has it already. They don't need to build anything really. So you don't even have that upfront building cost, I think, and there's a few building needing, but generally it's fine. So
I mean the Winter Games are probably a bit less sustainable to do, but I guess similarly you'd do it all in like Utah, Salt Lake City, where you get so much snow. Because the United States gets way more snow than most of Europe and Asia.
Yeah.
For
maybe even you could possibly do it in Canada.
Like I guess maybe Calgary or
Calgary's had the Winter Olympics
Colorado.
Before.
Yeah, Calgary's had an Olympics before. Had the Winter Olympics. It'd be something like that. Having a Winter Games. Beijing are gonna host the Winter Games. So they'll be the first team to do both the summer and winter. I mean, you could in theory do it with Beijing, but Beijing's already got like the fact that the Bird's Nest Stadium is like not being used for anything. It just shows that there's no natural thing. Like you're complementing a city if you're adding. If you keep it somewhere like LA, where we know they can do it and run it at a profit. Excuse me.
Exactly.
And like. It would be, and if you did the Winter Games, if you did something similar, like I don't think you'd want it to be in a small town like ski resort like Lake Placid, which is like there's still the state of New York's still paying for that. And if you host it in a place like Sochi, which was like 40 billion, but. All of that is because they had to build new facilities, and Winter Games facilities are harder to, keep on after. What you're gonna do with it? It would only be in a country where either winter sports are super popular, like Norway or Canada.
Yeah.
or you host it in a city like Salt Lake City, where it'll be part of the, winter games, like the winter, because college winter sports are played around there anyway.
Yeah.
And you use the, it would be the facilities for everything, but it's like complicated because in the Winter Olympics, the ice hockey is considered to be the World Cup the year it's out. So there's a World Cup every 2 years for ice hockey. So there's an actual World Cup, and then the Winter Olympics are considered to be the World Cup.
Oh, right.
The winner of the Olympics is considered to be the world champion as well.
Yeah.
So, if it's all at the one place, that's a bit unfair. But if we're doing this for all World Cups and all World Cups and Olympics, we play the NRL final at Homebush every year, apart from COVID years. It doesn't always favor the Sydney teams, honest.
Or
exactly. And AFL plays their final at the G every year, traditionally Melbourne teams are obviously strong, but I don't think there's, it tends to be a crowd that's evenly matched because they already know where it's gonna be, and you buy the tickets.
Yeah.
Generally in advance, or when there's a decent chance your team's gonna get in there.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think there's a lot of merit to the idea of hosting it in a single place. And also, ideally it'll be a city with good logistics and public transport.
Yeah.
But like Sydney was in 2000.
Yeah. So that was where they spent most of their money, I think. It's really getting that infrastructure in place for it.
Yeah,
that helped
Sydney, the Sydney Olympics, the infrastructure projects were something that the city needed. To be fair, and the Olympics meant that there was a bunch of cash injection and political will to get that sorted out.
Yeah.
But even then,
still went way over budget, and the Sydney Olympic Stadium was for a few years afterwards just a dead place. They've managed to.
Yeah.
I mean, they then had the Rugby World Cup, which they hosted there, and they've done a few other things since. But it's still, even now, is a place. There's the Olympic Stadium.
Other than the rugby, rugby league doesn't play there that often, other than NRL grand finals. But it's too big for any one club to be their home. The Sydney Football Ground is well good enough for teams like the Sydney City Roosters and stuff. And Shark Park and all that. That's more the size. And Homebush is the home of the Waratahs. But if the Waratahs are not winning, which is the case for a long time, Homebush is it's still a bit of a white elephant compared to the SCG or Sydney Football Stadium.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's got good transport links and everything. There's everything going for it to be a very useful stadium, but it's still a bit white elephant. Heck, even London Stadium is done by West Ham. It's not really, West Ham's not really getting the value out of that. There's I'm sure a lot of West Ham fans are still wondering why they left the Bull Inn ground and moved to a completely different part of London.
Yeah.
And it's, sure, they got a free stadium out of it, but, at what cost? And their original plan of it'll be a home for British athletics was never sustainable.
No, exactly.
British athletics don't generate enough money for that. Other than the US Olympic athletics commit probably for the U.S. the country does for athletics.
Yeah, exactly.
Like sure, Jamaica could probably sell 100K stadium if Usain Bolt raced every race. Yes, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're saying, even when Usain Bolt has retired and, Jamaica aren't having the best sprinters in the world anymore, they should still be able to sell out,
Yeah.
kind of stadium they're in. But yeah, it's an interesting debate. We'll obviously see there's a bunch of interesting ones up for grabs. We're going to see if there's going to be a World Test Championship being held in Asia next year.
Yeah.
Around June. Sorry, not next year, but after the next one. They're thinking of moving it out of the UK. And I'm kind of like, I like that it's in the UK. It kind of works.
Yeah.
I don't mind it being where it is. Or like if it could just always be the same host, why can't it if it's not going to be like Lords or like last time it was in Sunderland, or like why can't it just always be Dubai? Dubai is going to be pretty neutral ground for most people.
Yeah.
It's a city full of people from all the countries where cricket is popular, so you'll always have like people at the grounds.
Yeah, exactly. I do like it being played.
London is always going to be England. Test matches are just always going to be a sellout. Doesn't matter who plays.
Exactly. I like the idea of it being at Lords just because that's like the spiritual home, right? Like, so it feels right for the Test Championship final to be played at Lords, no matter who's playing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like that it's a 6-day test.
Yeah.
Like with the day.
Makes it a little bit more special as well, right? And just a little different. Something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something there.
Yeah, and I like the fact that the draw means they do share the trophy, because draws are a thing in Test cricket. Like we accept that. Draws but ties get a super over, which I think is weird because a tie should probably let you also share it.
Yeah.
I think they're so rare in Test matches. They're so rare. T20s and ODIs, I get it. Have a super over.
The Test match is like, wow, like you should just get it twice. Like you had a tie. You get the trophy twice because that's just weird. So you both get it twice.
Yeah. So it'll be an interesting time. We'll see how we go forward. There's a change coming. We can't sustainably do international tournaments and events the way they're being done now. They're too way going out of budget, and cities are left with giant bills, and nobody wants to pay for them anymore.
Yeah.
So I guess there's a lot riding on LA in 2028.
Yeah.
And the World Cup in the USA next year. As well. So that's going to be the next the step in between.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We'll see how that works out, but in the end, that's 2024. What we could figure out, the top 10 big things, stories that we liked. So far, 2025 has been pretty eventful as well, but we'll get to that in 12 months' time.
Yeah.
But as it is, I think that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much for listening, and we look forward to hearing from you next time.
Catch you next time.
Well, that is the end. Thanks for listening all the way through.
If you liked what you heard, we have even more. NIneSixFourTwo Discord and a Buy Me a Coffee.
Pretty sure it's Buy Me a Beer.
Oh yeah, buy me a beer on buymeacoffee.com.
In both these places, you can talk to us, and we may even listen, especially if you do buy a said beer or coffee. I might still be confused.
Yes, we're easily bribed. All links are in the show notes below.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
This is on YouTube.